How do we figure out the coordinates of a point using weighted averages? So here's the example that we'll be doing in this video. Here we have 2 points. We have point A and point B. And A has twice the weight of B, and we need to figure out the weighted average point, which is like the point in the middle. So you may have learned in the past about finding the midpoint, which is basically just the point exactly in the middle. So for example, if we had a point A and a point B, the midpoint would be the one exactly in the middle, like right here. But with weighted average points, some of the points have more weight than others. So for example, it says here that A has twice the weight of B, which means that the higher the weight the point has, the more it's going to pull in the midpoint. So the midpoint, instead of being over here, instead it's going to be somewhere around here. Because A has twice the weight of B, it's pulling it in more than B is. So the midpoint's going to be closer to A than B. Now, how do we do this? And especially how do we do this without a graph? As you can see, these are points on a graph, but we're not going to be using a graph to solve this. Well, remember that a point always has two coordinates. It has an X and it has a Y. So we're going to find the weighted average of X, and then we're going to find the weighted average of Y. So let's find the weighted average of the X's first. The X of point A is 4, and the X of point B is 1. So how do we find this weighted average? Well, there's a formula to do it, so I'm going to show you the formula, but don't get too caught up about the complicated formula because you just need to think about what it means. So here's the formula that I was talking about. I know it looks a little bit complicated, but let's break this down so that you understand what it means. Let's say we weren't doing weighted average. Let's say we were just taking a regular average. We would add together 4 and 1, so 4 plus 1 is 5. And then to take the average, we have to divide it by how many numbers there are. In this case, we were averaging 2 numbers, so we divide it by 2. And 5 divided by 2 is, well, 2.5. For weighted average, we're doing the exact same thing. As you can see, we're adding together the X of A plus the X of B. But the extra part with the weights is we have to multiply them by how heavy they are, by their weight. So in this case, if A has twice the weight of B, then we're going to give A a weight of 2, and we're going to give B a weight of 1. So we just have to multiply them by whatever their weights are. And then at the end, instead of dividing by how many numbers there are, we're going to divide by the total weights. So in this case, that would be 2 plus 1, which is 3, because A has 2 weight and B has 1. So let's go ahead and do that with the X points here. First, let's take the weight of A, which is 2, because A has twice the weight, and we're multiplying 2 by the X of A, which is 4. And then we're adding it to the X of B, which is 1, times its weight, which is also 1. So 1 times 1. And then we're dividing it by the total weights, the weight of A plus the weight of B. The weight of A was 2, and the weight of B was 1. So now let's just go ahead and simplify what we have here. So 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 times 1, which is 1. And that's going to be over 2 plus 1, which is 3. Simplifying more, we have 8 plus 1, which is 9. And then we have 9 over 3. Remember, fractions are the same thing as division. So 9 divided by 3 is 3. So this means that the X of our midpoint here, which is not really a midpoint because it's a weighted average point, but the X of that point is going to be 3. And if you think about that, that makes sense. The X of A was 4, and the X of B was 1. 3 is like right in the middle, but it's a little bit closer to 4 than it is to 1 because A has more weight. So I'm just going to write our answer up here. This is going to be our weighted average point, and the X is going to be 3. But we still need to figure out what the Y is going to be. So now let's find the weighted average of Y. And the way that we do it is exactly the same way, except instead of X, we're going to put Y. So the Y's are the second numbers of each point. For A, that's 3. And for B, that's negative 3. So let's go ahead and put this into our formula. So the Y of the first point is 3, but we're multiplying it by its weight, which is 2, because A has double the weight. And we're going to add that to the Y of B, which is negative 3. But we have to multiply it by its weight, which is just 1. And then we're going to divide it by adding together the weights, which is still 2 plus 1. So let's go ahead and simplify. 2 times 3 is 6. And then 1 times negative 3, anything times 1 is itself, so that's negative 3. And then that's going to be over 2 plus 1, which is 3. And notice how I didn't put plus negative 3, I just put minus 3. You could do plus and negative 3 as well. They mean exactly the same thing. So 6 minus 3 is 3, and 3 divided by 3 is 1. which means that the y of our middle point, our weighted average point, is going to be 1. So let's go ahead and plug that in up here. And we have now found our answer. The weighted average point of A and B is 3, 1. So now you know how to find the weighted average of 2 points. But one of the scarier parts of math is using formulas like that, especially when they're a little bit hard to understand. So if you want to get a little more practice using these formulas, then I have a video on another one called the distance formula. So if you want to watch that, you can watch this video right here. And as always, if you have any questions about this video, go ahead and leave it in the comments, and I'll be sure to answer your question. Thanks for watching.